Hey all, this is Chris from Mike and Chris.
And I'm not Mike.
Not Mike. Mike can't be with us this evening. He's taken a little ill, but I got one of our good friends, Kent, to fill in. And tonight we are going to cover Preacher. It just ended last Sunday?
I think it was 2 Sundays ago.
Sundays ago?
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Preacher's TV series created from a comic book.
Yep.
That originally came out in
1995.
95, and it ran till 2000, right?
2000.
It's got an interesting premise to it, but I think I'm jumping a little ahead because don't we have to get some little warnings here?
I'll play the lawyer here. We generally try to keep things clean on the Mike and Chris show due to the subject matter involved in Preacher, TV show, and comic books. Cursing, thematic or religious elements will be talked about. It's not a choosing of sides. It's not personal beliefs. If we use terms like God, the devil, angels, you name it, they are actually just characters in the comic book, and we're talking about those characters, not actual gods, angels, and what have you.
Definitely, and there will be spoilers for the show.
Oh yes, absolutely. But to be fair, comic book and show, kind of like Game of Thrones, they're kind of their own thing, so they could be spoilers, they could not be spoilers. So.
It seems that way. However, if we're talking about the show, there will be spoilers.
Yes.
But yes, definitely, if you were a very, very into religion or whatever, we do apologize if you do listen to this, but again, it is just a comic book and a TV series. Mm-hmm. Our opinions are just that, our opinions. We just hope you enjoy either way. So with that, let's get right into it. Again, TV show was created, Sam Catlin, Evan Goldberg, Seth Rogen. Everybody knows Seth Rogen. Went ahead and created the show, 10 episodes.
Did really, really well, too. I did get some accolades. It was the number 2 new cable drama of this season.
Which is pretty good.
Not unless you think about what number 1 was.
I don't even want to know.
The People versus O.J. Simpson.
Okay, well,
I was pretty happy with it until I looked up number 1.
Cuba Gooding Jr. is making a comeback.
Apparently.
The original series was created by Garth Ennis, inked by Steve Dillon, which I've remember reading him way back and when. I haven't read all as much as you have, obviously, but I did read a few issues way back when. I'm not super familiar on the comic books. I do know that there is a huge difference between the comic books and the television series.
Quite a bit, but I mean, they kind of explained that going in they were going to do that. Garth Ennis has been working with them on it and kind of said, we didn't want you to just be expecting what was going to happen next. They did want to make it its own story, but at the same time, it'd still be Preacher.
Which kind of goes back to your Game of Thrones reference.
Well, yeah. And before we get too much into the actual, the story itself, Preacher has had a kind of sorted past, even from the comic books, going into what is now the TV show today.
Yeah, you were telling me about that.
It started a ways back. Kevin Smith did write the foreword for a couple of the episodes. Everybody knows Kevin Smith, I hope.
I hope.
And if you don't, what are you doing with your life?
And if you don't, come out of the bomb shelter.
That's
the
right.
The war's over.
So Kevin Smith loosely has worked in comics throughout the years, Green Arrow, things like that. So he has a lot of friends there. He was able to work with Garth Ennis and try to pen a script back in 1998. Him and Scott Mosier were going to direct it. They were going to base it off the first series of comic books called the Gone to Texas line, which was basically like what Season 1 was. Okay. Maybe half of what Season 1 was.
Which 98's pretty much in the height of the comic book.
Mm-hmm. So. It was still going, and they were running around trying to produce it. They pitched it to Miramax. They didn't want it. Long story short, it went through production hell for a long time. At one point, do you happen to know the name of the gentleman who played Cyclops in the original X-Men?
James Marsden.
James Marsden was actually cast in 2001 as Jesse Custer.
Thank God.
Yeah, some bullets there dodged. But, sorry, Marsden, if you're listening, it's nothing personal. You're just not Preacher. But
the
fun part,
Cyclops.
The fun and or most interesting part out of all of it being HBO is pretty racy. We can say that.
I would say so with some of their shows they have nowadays.
Like Game of Thrones, that kind of thing.
Now back then, late 90s, not so much.
True, but what if I told you that HBO owned the rights to Preacher in 2006? They were going to make their own pilot, Go the whole 9 yards.
And how many seasons is Game of Thrones into now? Going into 7?
7, right. And
so you figure 6-7 years ago, that's what, 2008?
2008, so not too far from 2006. HBO executives, after putting down some serious money to want to do a pilot and really get into it and start casting, they were going to rewrite a new script. They weren't going to use the Kevin Smith script. They dropped it for thematic elements, and they thought the stylized tone was too adult and too out there for viewers.
The same HBO that has Game of Thrones, people. You know, people's schlongs flailing around.
Heads exploding.
Yeah. How about, people getting their face crushed?
Yeah. There's been some pretty heinous stuff on Game of Thrones.
A few beheadings here and there.
And then for AMC, American Movie Classic, something that at least not even 10 years ago was pretty darn tame. I mean, maybe playing a copy of The Wild Bunch or Lawrence of Arabia. Preacher.
Yeah, definitely. I think AMC's kind of coming into their own now. I mean, you got Walking Dead, you got Preacher, you got
Breaking Bad.
I think it kind of kicked off with Breaking Bad, if you ask me. That's what kind of set them off.
Pretty soon they're not going to have time for American Movie Classics anymore.
Pretty soon, by the time the new ones come out, these will be American Movie Classics. It's in 75 total issues of everything.
75 altogether. 66 monthly, just regular monthly episodes, kind of a deal like a regular comic book. A couple of one-shots where it was just an offshoot story or a backstory for someone, kind of like what Star Wars is doing with Han Solo now.
Oh yeah.
And a 4-part special that they kind of tossed around to different people to fill in the story on the Sandoval Killers, who viewers of the show will know him as the Cowboy.
It's a catchy name. I guess to give you kind of a little bit of background, you got your main characters. You got Jesse Custer, who is the preacher. Mm-hmm. He gets an entity that enters him known as Genesis, which is basically an unholy union of a demon, a devil, and an angel.
Yeah, well, it was a demon and an angel.
Demon and an angel.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it gives him the word of power, I wouldn't call it word of God.
It is references the word of God in the comics, but mostly by Tulip, his girlfriend, who we'll get into here in a minute. But in the show, it's just they just call it the word to keep it simple, I guess. It compels anybody who hears it, who can understand it, which is important. So it doesn't work on non-English speakers or what have you,
or deaf people.
Yeah, exactly, or deaf people, which comes into play. But if you were to say jump off the Empire State Building, if I said that to you, you wouldn't do it.
No.
I would hope.
At least I hope I would.
Yeah. Well, if I was Jesse Custer and I had Genesis in me, you would be so compelled to do so you couldn't stop yourself.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yep.
Which, I could think of a lot more uses for that word, but I won't get into that right now.
That's why he's a preacher.
Anyway, he gets this word, the entity put in him, again, Genesis, we'll just call it Genesis, and I guess he doesn't really realize at first, and kind of starts going about, then kind of...
Well, see, now this is where we have to decide which way we want to go, if we want to talk about the show first or the comic book, because the first big change is how he gets it, if he's aware of it, not aware of it. It just depends which road you want to go. By the way, we're in spoiler territory now.
Yes, very big spoiler territory. We'll just come back to that one here in a minute.
Okay. We should get the premise out of the way, the main characters.
Let's keep going with the characters. The next person we got is Cassidy.
Awesome.
Who is an Irish vampire.
Yes, he is.
However, he's not like a normal vampire that you see, like your little Twilight people or your little... or your little, Lost Boys or whoever. He's not anything like that. He's more of just your everyday, normal-looking guy, except he can't go in the sun.
Oh, big problem with the sun. He can still eat and drink food like normal.
Yeah, but he has to drink blood to regenerate.
It helps.
And now, does he have to drink blood to sustain himself?
Absolutely not.
So, just to basically, if he hurts himself, cuts himself, does whatever...
He will regenerate on his own, but say, I don't know, you got like a meat cleaver in the arm or something, you'd probably want to have a nibble. It would hem it up right away, whereas it would take days or weeks otherwise.
Okay. So yeah, he's
doesn't even have fangs.
Yeah, he's kind of I don't know, it's like an offshoot vampire, I guess. I don't know how to really explain him.
It's a little different. I mean, all the same rules still do apply. Sunlight, like you said, things like that, the blood drinking, but garlic crosses.
Apparently, definitely not a cross.
No, none of that bothers him whatsoever.
The next person we got, obviously, is Jesse's love interest, Tulip O'Hare. Which, again, comic books, TV series, completely night and day different.
Everything from characterization, personalization, and backstory. Everything's 180 spun.
And not to sound racist, but color too.
Yes, there is that. She was, your typical blonde hair, blue-eyed, almost Meg Ryan looking, kind of just, blonde chick.
Yeah, and then in the television series, she's played by Ruth Negga, which, if anybody knows who she is, if anyone's watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or if you've seen Warcraft movie, which is odd because in the Warcraft movie she plays the Queen of the Land, and Dominic Cooper, who plays Jesse Custer in the television series, plays the King.
What if Jesse just used his power on a bunch of people during a Civil War reenactment and told them to dress up like orcs so he could have a kingdom? You never know, Hollywood. You never know.
Could be. Next, sorry, I'm skipping ahead again. Tulip. They're both, I guess. Differences. A television series. They grew up together.
Yep, they were best friends growing up, but she was the bad girl. She was the naughty kid with the mom in jail and the drunk uncle.
Yeah.
The bad kid.
But in the comic books, not so much.
You never really hear much about her folks. You find out far later that her dad was the one who taught her how to shoot, even though she claimed not to care for firearms, that kind of thing.
But they never grew up together.
No, they didn't. And the other funny part is she is a dyed-in-the-wool and pretty badass, I don't know if you want to call her a hitman, mercenary, whatever, in the show. And then she's very well established. In the first episode, she takes out...
Troubleshooter.
She took out a helicopter and a squad team using coffee cans and moonshine, man. She MacGyvered it.
Well.
Whereas Tulip in the comic books meets Cassidy when she's doing her first hit that she has to do out of obligation to get out of sexual favors, screws up and only blows the jaw off of the armed guard next to her target, and is running from them trying to kill her when she runs into Cassidy. So she's only been a hit woman for about like a day.
Apparently not a very good one.
Screwed the pooch a bit. And, that's the way it ends up going. So huge differences there. But still more or less the same character. Kind of a take-no-guff kind of lady.
Yeah. One thing I didn't really mention either about Jesse. Other than his word, or I guess we're just going to call it the word, he's just an average, everyday, normal guy who's just likes to fight.
Yes and no. You find out again, and this may be spoilerific for the show viewers, in the comics, you don't find it out until, say, midway through, but he had a very incredibly hard upbringing. I mean, almost a V.C. Andrews, if you've ever read those novels, kind of a twisted, messed up upbringing, and he's harder than nails because it's the only way he could survive, kind of a deal. Whether or not that plays out in the show, I don't know, but another spoiler alert here. In the very first episode, when he sits up, there's a tattoo in the middle of Preacher's back. It's a little weird. Preacher doesn't have any tattoos in the comic, but that horseshoe, kind of a star with a cow skull in it that was on his back, that's the brand of the ranch, the farm, where his grandmother and his twisted family forced him to do all those horrible things. So he's almost branded with it from the first episode. So
you might see something come play in it here eventually.
Hopefully.
But yeah, but other than that, he's just, you can shoot him, he'll die.
Oh, yes. Oh, incredibly mortal. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to kind of differentiate to people that he's not some superhero. He's not bulletproof. He's not, can't fly. He can't do whatever. He's just a normal guy with this entity inside him.
Yep. And the word only works, again, if you can hear him, you can understand him. You've got to give him time to talk. People could stop him from doing that.
And apparently the entity did not like Tom Cruise.
Okay, now that is something we need to talk about. That's something that's a little different. In the comic books, the entity just comes straight to Jesse Custer. This happens to be where the entire town of Anvil is in the church, not because he's going to do other wonderful things like we'll talk about later for the show, but simply because a preacher had tied one too many on the night before and went to the local bar and basically washed out everybody's dirty laundry. He called out people watering down beer. He called out people who did illegal farm videos with ladies and donkeys and stuff in the barn. Called out two good old boys whose uncle was a judge, and those girls they raped, that didn't happen. They beat the living tar out of him, and then the next day there was over 220 people in attendance in his church. Anyway, Genesis joins with him. He goes up like a nuke, and he napalms the entire church. 220 people vaporized, just gone. They're having a hard time getting dental records. Now, in the show, like you said, the exploding...
Yeah, the entity was basically searching for someone, and you see it enter looks like a preacher or something in a little, I guess, African or...
Oh, yeah, Africa was the first one.
First church there. Well, the guy, he gets it, he gets the power, gets the word, and he explodes.
Now, he did tell him to be quiet.
Yes.
Or silence, and they all got quiet.
But then he explodes.
He wasn't able to take it.
But what's funny about this is as this entity's searching for people, because it gives reference to people being, this people dying like this or exploding, there's a certain someone that shows on TV that happened to explode.
Oh, yeah.
Who I'm assuming is maybe some sort of higher up in his Scientology thing.
It did hop from religion to religion.
And so we come to find out that Mr. Tom Cruise has exploded. Tried to accept this Genesis. It's just kind of one of the funnier things, I think, in the series, in the television series.
It was
anyway,
absolutely a hilarious add-on, and they made it a running gag throughout the season.
Yeah.
Because the news coverage, which we've come so much to accept in our lives, with the horrible quotes and things. What was it for the funeral motorcade?
Crud, I can't remember.
Oh, Emotion Impossible.
Yes.
As Tom Cruise's remains are brought to his final resting place.
Oh, the last thing was Cruise in Space.
Oh, right. Were they shooting his ashes or whatever?
Yeah, out and rocketing it up in space.
I swear.
But, that's just a little funny thing there.
Tom Cruise didn't have anything to do with the show, though.
No.
So it could be like another South Park. There could be a lawsuit involved.
Yep. He was not seen in the show at all.
Nope. Just reference. He was just a squid on the wall by the time they were showing anything.
Next person, I guess, is pretty pertinent to the series. Arseface.
Arseface. Oh, before we get on Arseface, though, the premise of the story, because I'm sure everyone, like the people watching the show, have no idea what they watched. If they got to the end of the first season, they're still not entirely sure what's going on. Premise of the comic book: a vampire, a hit lady, and a man with the word of God are going on the road to find the Lord Almighty and make him answer some questions. It's a crazy premise.
Sounds legit.
Yeah, why not? Nothing better to do.
Well, people out there nowadays, even seriously, they want to know, find God, ask him why.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
But, again, hit woman, vampire, man with the word.
Random 3 ragtag group, gonna go find God.
Gonna try anyway. Because apparently he's missing.
But more on that later. All right, so Arseface.
Or
as they always reference him in the show, Eugene.
Eugene in the show,
Root.
yes. A kid that tried to blow his face off and ended up just getting incredibly disfigured, and his face just kind of looks like a butthole.
Sadly, yes. Yeah, he took a straight shot right to the mouth,
which is funny because the only person in the show that referenced him as Arseface was Cassidy.
In the comic books, that's actually a direct tie-in. In the middle of a very tense scene, and people are bleeding and dying, in all of that tenseness, he looks up and goes, "That kid's got the face of an arse." To which Eugene had no clue what arse meant, so he kept asking people. Something horrible happens to him after that, and then he swears that from henceforth he shall be known as Arseface, and he'll get his vengeance.
There's an evil origin there.
Mm-hmm,
Horrible name, but evil origin.
Again, this is all in the comic books. This may not happen in the show.
Yeah. But His dad was the sheriff.
Sheriff Root.
Which, again, you told me night and day difference.
Biggest 180 for me, man. He was the most despicable, hateful, like you just hated him in the book. You didn't care what happened to him in the book. He didn't talk to his kid from the day his kid shot himself till the day he died.
Which in the series, he's got a little apprehension towards him anyway, but he's still, you can tell he's genuinely concerned and wants to know where he's at when he disappears.
He like a real loving father. And even when people would yell at Eugene or say, get out of here, murderer, or this and that, he'd turn around and, who said that? Stand up for his boy. Plus, he talked to him. Again, that's a huge difference right there. Just even acknowledging kid's alive.
Yeah.
He ignored him for years.
Now, in the comic book, there was some angels searching for Genesis. You said there was 3 of them, though, correct?
There were 3 in the book. Basically, they're the ones in charge of keeping Genesis for research and study. And that was Pilo, DeBlanc, and Fiore.
But in the series, they changed it up a little bit. There's only 2 of them, which is DeBlanc and Fiore. They got some crazy notion to try and track this thing down, which is really weird. You see these guys dressed as cowboys with somewhat, German or European accents or something.
They've never been to Earth before, and they're kind of having a hard time fitting in. They're using stereotypes to survive.
I didn't think that big vibrator was a stereotype.
They didn't know what they'd need.
Well, trying to trap a, entity back into a coffee can with a big dildo, but whatever.
AMC, man.
Yeah,
AMC.
Only an AMC. Odin Quincannon, another big major character.
Real big surprise for a comic book fan here because, yes, he's huge in the comic books. And by the way, Hurley, what's his whole name?
Jackie Earl Haley.
Jackie Earl Haley. Amazing job. A little bit bigger in stature than the man was in the comic book. He was just this little shriveled up thing of a dried chicken with glasses.
Yeah.
Which they try to do with makeup and whatnot with him. But his personification of that character was spot on. But again, the weird part in the books, just to sum it up, all the comic books were put together in 9 huge volumes that are books in and of themselves, take you more than an evening to read.
Yeah.
He was in book 8 or 7.
So he wasn't even introduced till way later.
He's not even in Anvil. Nowhere near it, really. Whole different offshoot. So a little weird that they took something from the end, put it in the beginning.
Again, the series, the TV series, and the comic books are totally different. The only thing I see actually that's kind of the same is just the characters, really.
Just
their heart, the names or whatever, and everything else. But yeah, Odin Quincannon, Jackie Earl Haley, which I really like Jackie Earl Haley anyway. Anyone don't know who he is? He played Rorschach in Watchmen. He played the new Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street. He was originally in the original Bad News Bears.
Oh my gosh, he was Rudy.
Yes,
not Rudy. Wait,
no, Jackie, I think it was his name.
Kid with the arm.
Kelly was his name. He was the pitcher.
Yeah, baddest kid in the 4th grade. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, that's him. But he's been in several other projects. But I actually personally like him as an actor and stuff too. I've always liked him.
I always have too, and I totally didn't even think about that Bad News Bears, man. Wow.
Yeah. And the next one I guess pretty major character is your guy, the cowboy.
Hey, it's not that he's my guy. He's just he's Darth Vader and the Terminator and every other 1980s movie icon rolled into one. He's terrifying. You can't stop him.
He's actually played by Graham McTavish, he was in that series that Tina watches, Outlander.
Yep.
In the comic books, he's known as the Saint of All Killers. In the TV series, they just call him the Cowboy. I will let you explain why he's called the Saint of All Killers.
Without getting too far into it, for those of you who've watched the show, the story was pretty much the same. A man who used to be a butcher for the cavalry or army, whatever way you want to call it, back in the day. Kind of didn't necessarily find God, but he found peace. He found a woman who loved him. He had a daughter. He started a family, and he put violence and stuff aside. Through an odd set of circumstances, he ends up losing everything he's ever known, goes on a killing rampage, and dies. Now, again, this is where the show and everything else, it's not to say that the show won't do this later and won't show it, but he does actually go to hell in the comic books, but actually is so full of hate and spite, he disrupts hell and freezes the gates over so no more souls can come in. He breaks hell.
So hell froze over is what you're trying to say.
This pisses off the devil, who happened to be playing a game of poker with Gabriel at the time.
Which Gabriel is the
Angel
of Death.
Mm-hmm. It does beg the question, what's an angel doing playing poker with the devil at 2 a.m? That's neither here nor there. During all of this, the devil goes down and tries to personally torment the soul to correct the issue. He wears the devil out. The devil cannot break this man. It's very graphic. You should read the comic. It's amazing. In the end of it, they come down to brass tacks, and the angel of death no longer wants to be the angel of death. He takes the sword the Lord gave him himself, the one that he smited, Gomorrah and other such legendary cities with. They melt it down and turn it into 2 Colt revolvers. They never run out of ammo. They never miss their mark. And any shot is lethal.
That's to angels and demons, obviously, and as well as humans.
One would think. They do explain that, so the saint turns it on Satan himself. Satan begs and says, "You can't do that." He pulls back the hammer and fires, says, "I just did," and walks back out of hell. So we're talking about a man who killed the devil himself just to see if he could do it.
So probably someone you shouldn't want to mess with.
Again, I really hope AMC gets the budget. I hope it gets the viewers, because just a snippet from the book, at one point he fights 2 tank battalions and gets hit with a nuke from a B-2 bomber. No joke. Hand-to-hand combat versus tanks.
Nice.
But not Ang Lee style.
Yeah, hopefully not. I know in the television series it gives reference to his family. He's going to try and find the medicine to help cure him.
Yep.
He ends up getting held up apparently by another preacher, but this preacher's a little more deplorable. They kill his horse, force him to walk back to his family, all because he was trying to do a good thing. And by the time he gets there, again, family dead, so he goes back, takes revenge on him. In the series, they can't get this Genesis out of Jesse. They don't want to leave, basically.
No, it does not.
And so the angels decide, Fior and DeBlanc decide to go get the cowboy, or the Saint of all killers, to pretty much take him out. So we see in there that he's kind of reliving that. I guess that's his own personal hell.
Right. When I was watching it with you, you said that whole shaking of the bottles and whatnot was kind of the storm coming. Because honestly, I didn't know what the hell that was. I just thought that was the anger or the world falling apart. I forgot all about the storm, to be honest, until you said it.
Yeah, that's what the kid said. He said, "Come in, mister, there's a storm coming."
Yep, and that's may have been what killed him and sent him to hell. We don't know. We don't know.
Don't know, but it's interesting to see his arc, and of course there towards the end you see him come out, and he's
the very end. He's the last teaser after the season finale.
Yes, and he like I said, he comes out, and it looks like that's where it's going to lead off, because they've already greenlit a second season.
Yeah,
that's where they're going to lead off, as you see, of course, Jesse, Cassidy, and Tulip off searching for God. Again, spoilers. If you have not watched the series, watch it, or if you have not read the comics, read them. These are plenty of spoilers in here, so
huge ones, but it's not necessarily the destination.
No,
it's the journey getting there.
Exactly. You find out Jesse wants to talk to God. They've got this little phone thing in the series that actually. Yeah, the angels have a magic phone that looks like 1950s tech or something. Yeah, like Vault Tech.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, it allows them to communicate with heaven or God or whoever. So he wants to bring God to his parish. People ask him why. Come to find out, whoever they were talking to is not God. Jesse uses the voice on them, asks them where God is. They don't know. God has disappeared. So that leads into, at the end, Jesse, Tulip, again Cassidy decide we're going to go find God.
Mm-hmm. Which really is kind of where things pick up in the first panel of the first comic. So a lot of people, I'm sure if you have friends, if you're listening to this, you obviously like Preacher, or you've watched a little bit, you've talked to a friend who does like it. And a lot of people have probably said the first season was the prequel to Preacher. And I fought that the whole time, but they're kind of right. Because that's where it starts, is them saying they're in a diner and they're like, let's get our story straight and catch up to where we are right now. Why are we here?
Yeah.
Why are we trying to find God?
Yeah, it kind of sounds like that to me. I mean, based on the comic books and then even the show, the first season of the show, it almost seems, like you said, the show seems like it's a prequel to the comic books.
Explain why they'd be looking for him and whatnot, which is all fine, and they still got relevant information, like this time somebody being an imposter for God. Very different in the comic books. Jesse just straight called an angel down. Actually through the Saint of all killers, who was tearing his way through Anvil and murdering also. I mean, again, so many differences, so many crazy changes. Exposition's been different for a lot of different characters, from Cassidy on up.
Now, I know we talk about the Saint of all killers, how just BA is and everything else, but Jesse's voice still will work on him. Yes,
it absolutely will. Something he doesn't care for in the books too much. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the show.
Yeah, even in the series, in the when you watched it, he didn't use it, but what, 4, 5 times?
Well, he used it a bit, but I mean, I guess you mean publicly, or I mean, there was times
there
that
was
he was just testing
the guy at the beginning. He just did on accident. Eugene, he did on accident. Mm-hmm. He did it. He did it to the Angels. When he told them to stay away from him.
He's done it to Tulip. He's done it to Cassidy.
Of course, Cassidy, showing Cassidy.
Multiple people from his parish, giving them certain freedoms, like be patient, be understanding. He did that to a whole bunch of people.
He did it to Odin Quincannon. He did it to the Angels at the end.
Donnie a few times.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he used it quite a bit, I guess.
In fact, that was what the Angels were getting on to him about, that it was completely not to ever be used, which is also another funny counterpoint from the show. Something that never happened in the comics, where the Angels were just even trying to get Genesis back. Now, the second he broke out of heaven in the comic books, they don't even come down to Earth until far later when they get caught for letting Genesis get out. They just send the Saint right away. The second it breaks out, they're like, go get the Saint. In fact, that's why there's a third angel, because they send him to go wake up the Saint, because the Saint's not in hell in the comic books. And the first thing he does is kill the angel. The second he wakes up. Now, despite not having a head or a brain, it's just kind of a face, if you will, and the back's all melon balled out. He still gets the entire explanation to the Saint of all killers before he dies. And I mean, it's like 5 pages long. It's great. He's just talking with no head.
That's pretty funny.
So, a lot of differences, but still, all in all, it's been great. It's been a great ride. We don't know what's going to happen.
I enjoyed the series. It seemed like it was a little iffy to start out with to me. It takes an episode or two to get really into it, but once I started watching it, I really got into it. It's pretty good. I can tell you this, I finished that, and I haven't even finished Walking Dead.
To be fair, as a fan, if you've already known the material, you're on pins and needles every episode. There's hints, there's jokes, there's references. If you were a brand new viewer, you're just sitting there on the couch eating chips, and you're like, yeah, Preacher, what's that? Stick that on. I wouldn't know what the hell was going on.
Well, again, like, you're like me. I'm a huge comic nerd. I've grown up with comics. I have probably anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 comic books. So I'm not too unfamiliar with the stuff. And like I said, I told you before, I've read episodes here or issues here and there back when I was a kid, back when they came out and stuff like that. So, yeah. But I'm not too unfamiliar, but I'm not super familiar with Preacher either as far as the comic books go. It's like I said, it's series from what I've seen, from what I know in the comic books, like we were talking about, it's night and day. But I do like the way they're going, the direction of it, and I do like the fact that you pointed out. It seems like it's almost like a prequel to the comic books.
The spirit feels the same. Everybody feels like they're doing what they would be doing if they were in the book.
Yeah.
It's just the circumstances.
Now, one thing I did notice too, like in the town, you think that like, oh well, Jesse's trying to he's trying to be a preacher. He's trying to be run his parish and this and that, and it's like, well, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? if you watch the show, you realize there ain't not one person is really that innocent in that town.
No.
That town is pretty.
And even the people you may love or think are great or just are interested in, come the end of the season, everybody's got a reason to be punished, I guess.
Yeah, and then I will not spoil this one. You watch it at the end of the season. It ends on a big note. So, but
gotta give me more than a hint than that. Now even I'm lost.
The end of the season?
Oh, just the last episode?
Yeah.
Well, there's some definite Monty Python references, but I mean, other than that.
Oh, it ends on a big note.
Oh, that note. Oh, that one.
You want me to reference it differently?
Nah, it's fine.
Goes out with a.
Oh, come on, really? Hiroshima, calm down.
I highly recommend it. People who are you're into the AMC shows have watched Breaking Bad, have watched Walking Dead. Even Fear the Walking Dead's getting pretty good.
It's turning into a show. It absolutely is.
AMC seems like they're kind of starting to knock it out of the park. I really enjoyed Preacher. I mean, if I'd had to give it a rating, I'd say I'd give it a good solid 8 out of 10.
Just due to memes, I have to say 7 out of 10 would watch. Some people know what I'm talking about. But no, it definitely is good. My only warning to people, to be completely objective, we barely scratched the surface. We felt we were giving out all these spoilers. We didn't cover 1/10 of what we could talk about in this.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on forever.
Definitely. There's so much. Tons and tons of stuff in the comic books. There's still a lot we didn't even go over on the show.
Goodness knows.
I would just recommend watching the show. Read the comic books. You should be able to pick up the graphic novels. TBS Comics anywhere. You can order them online if you need to.
Amazon has the run, and I think it's also on Kindles as well for digital.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think it's a great show. I think it's going to do pretty good things. There's several shows out there that are starting to be pretty good, and now with shows like Game of Thrones ending, you know, people absolutely love. We still don't know how long Walking Dead's going to go for.
Probably forever. The best thing I can say about Preacher is, yeah, I have expectations, I have hopes, I have dreams. Was all the casting the way I wanted? No. Yes, and no. They've made me love characters I hated and hate characters I've loved. The show's just all over the place, but the greatest part of it is I don't know what's going to happen on the next episode. And I was on pins and needles every single episode, so if you're a fan, it's twice as agonizing.
Which is good, because that's the type of shows you want. Those shows that are going to draw you in to wonder what the heck's going to happen next. Which is, I think, is why like Game of Thrones was so popular. You don't know what's going to happen next. You know.
To be fair, this one is definitely a vein in and of its own in comparison to the other. Having read both the novels and stuff, and Game of Thrones can be a whole other show.
Yes.
But they took a good couple, 3-4 seasons to go left field before they took that left turn at Albuquerque. Preacher just spun the wheel and started filming. So. Yeah.
And you know, I personally like a lot of the characters in there. I mean, I like Dominic Cooper. I've seen him in a few other things. Now Ruth Negga, who plays Tulip, I was not a huge fan of her in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Not at all.
I don't think it was her fault.
In this one, she seemed a little more better to me. I'm still a little on the fence about her, especially seeing. And you know how I am about like casting people from comic books. Like I told you about the Fantastic Four, how I absolutely, and I have nothing against Michael B. Jordan or any of the actors or actresses on that show, but the casting was just absolutely horrible.
I get you. It's like if they make Deadpool 2 and then Cable's a dolphin.
Yes.
You're like, Cable was never a dolphin. I don't understand this.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes it is left field, but I don't know. They've just done such an amazing job with the source material. They've made it their own. They made it something you want to watch. Again, the only people I kind of feel bad for are people just getting into this now who don't have any clue what it's about. Because I'll be honest, if I was 2 or 3 episodes in and all of a sudden I've gone from some crazy drinking preacher to some dude in 1884 shooting Indians and stuff, what am I watching?
Yeah, and you're right. With us having a little more insight from the comic books, it's easier for us to follow it. But that's an easy fix. Like you said, you can download the comic books. You can try and pick them up, the graphic novels or anything else. They are a good read if you're into comic books, or if you're into, and I wouldn't even say comic books, if you're into just a good storyline.
I believe nerds like the Collector would call this a graphic novel, sir.
Yes.
Graphic novel.
But at the same time, it does have a lot of touchy subject matter content.
Huge.
Again, if you're just hugely religious, it does involve a lot of God, devil, everything else, and
not to interrupt you there, not even just religious. If you are easily offended, and I don't mean all of you 2016, just if you are personally easily offended.
I do.
There are so many different subject matters and so many different dark passages. I don't believe there's any one culture, color, or creed that the brightest and darkest points are not shown of, at least in the comic. So you have to be incredibly open-minded on all fronts.
Which
in more ways than one.
I imagine in the late 90s that people were a little more open-minded then.
Actually, no, there's some stuff today that has reality TV shows that wasn't even talked about in closed doors in 1995. So this was really some scary stuff to be carrying around. I'm not saying it's the Anarchist Cookbook, but it's contraband.
That's all I got, man. I mean, watch the show, read the books.
Do. And if you don't watch the show, Mike isn't going to get better, and he's not going to come back. So, okay, you got to watch Preacher. You got to read the comic books.
And you got to listen to the podcast.
You got to listen to Mike and Chris.
That's about all we got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you, Kent, for filling in for Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Mike, hopefully will be back with us next week. If not, we'll drag his carcass somewhere.
Weekend at Bernie's, Mike and Chris, next weekend.
That's right.
Let's do it.
I believe next week we're going to be discussing Attack on Titan and Tokyo Ghoul finally. Ooh. We've pushed that off for about 2 or 3 weeks now. Don't forget to like our page on YouTube. Subscribe to us. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Like our page on Facebook.
Like all of it.
Yeah.
Just like it all.
Just like it.
I don't run those pages, so I'm just going to agree.
And we appreciate everyone. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.